Hi, my name is Tom Guilliams. I'm a PhD researcher that has been looking into the whole area of lifestyle medicine, natural therapies for almost 20 years now. And the title of the lecture that I'm going to be doing this year for ACAM is on HPA axis function and dysfunction, and really trying to bridge the gap between the available information that's been accumulating in the stress and the stress response research over the last almost 2 decades, and really filling in the gaps between that research and what's really being done in the integrative medicine and functional medicine communities. There's quite a bit of information that's not being leveraged appropriately, and probably needs to be brought up to speed in most clinical practices to access the literature and the type of research that's being done, and then being able to leverage that in the clinical practice. The type of clinician that I think will get the most out of this are those that are really looking at a broader integrative and functional medicine, what some people might call root cause for chronic disease in their patients. Obviously, looking at a number of different biomarkers and looking at what's going on in a patient metabolically clearly involves looking at one of the chief surveillance components of the body, which is the HPA axis. And of course, the HPA axis is involved in virtually every metabolic function of the body. So pretty much you could say everyone, but I suppose if some people aren't interested in that broader root cause, they may feel like the HPA axis is not that important, although hopefully by the end of my lecture they'll realize that the HPA axis really can't be ignored. So some of the really important things that I think I've discovered, and I've been writing on this topic for the last year, consolidating a lot of the information available on the HPA axis, the stress response system as a whole, and its relationship with chronic disease. I think some of the things that I have stumbled across that I think are important to update the clinician are quite a bit of things related to the testing. Testing available by most of the laboratories is really missing some of the key components that is being investigated in the clinical research, and there are ways to modify what you ask the test companies, the laboratories, to measure, so that you can capture some of those aspects of the HPA axis. And then I think some of the ways that we explain what's actually fundamentally going on with stress is often oversimplified as being part of the adrenals. We often use the terms like adrenal fatigue or adrenal exhaustion. And as it turns out, most of the support for the adrenal gland comes not by supporting the adrenal gland specifically, but by supporting what's going on usually in the brain or at the target tissues. So what I'm going to spend quite a bit of time in this lecture is really explaining key areas that we can leverage that help us understand what's going on with the stress response and what we can do to mitigate some of the chronic effects of the stress response, most of which are not really adrenal issues or adrenal therapies, although that's sometimes how we coin them. So one of the keys to my lecture is really to be understanding the HPA axis and the stress response as much more than an adrenal issue.